everyone, I'm Alana from Kids Read to Kids, and today I'm going to be starting Chapter 6 of Read All About It by Valerie Tripp. I've got my American Girl reading doll with me, courtesy of American Girl, so let's get started. Chapter 6, Thanksgiving. At school that morning, Kit's teacher, Mr. Fisher, said, "Now boys and girls, as you all know, Thanksgiving is coming soon. I'd like our class to do its part to help the hungry. So if you can, please bring in an item of food. It doesn't have to be anything big. An apple or a potato will do. I know most of us don't have much food to spare, but if we can all chip in, we can make a Thanksgiving basket and donate it to a soup kitchen." The students murmured among themselves, but without much enthusiasm. They'd all seen soup kitchens with long lines of people waiting outside them. Kit had once seen a man in a soup line faint on the street from hunger. She knew that soup kitchens were for people who had been without work for so long that they had no money or hope or pride left, and who were so desperate that they had to accept free food. "My father says that people who go to soup kitchens should be ashamed," said a stout boy named Roger, full of bluster. "They're bums." "They're not bums," said Ruthie. "Most of them are perfectly nice, normal people who happen to be down on their luck. I think we should feel sorry for them." "My father says they're just too lazy to work," said Roger. "And now that Franklin Roosevelt's been elected, people will expect the government to take care of them. My father says it'll ruin our country." Kit grew hot under the collar listening to Roger and thinking of how hard Dad was trying to find a job. "People aren't too lazy to work," she said. "They'd work if they could find a job. Jobs are hard to find." Mr. Fisher nodded. "These are hard times," he said. "But Mr. Fisher," a girl named Mabel asked, "we're still going to have a Thanksgiving pageant this year, aren't we?" "Yes, of course," said Mr. Fisher. "The 6th graders will be the Pilgrims," he said. "The 5th graders will be the Indians. Our 4th grade is responsible for the scenery." Mr. Fisher held up a drawing. "Here's a drawing of the backdrop we'll paint." The drawing showed 4 giant turkeys and a cornucopia with fruits and vegetables spilling out. The turkeys' feathers were different colors. They were made out of bits of paper cut to look like real feathers, and they were glued onto the turkeys. "That's good," said a boy named Tom. "Yes, it is, isn't it?" said Mr. Fisher. "Who drew it?" asked a girl named Dorothy. "Sterling," said Mr. Fisher. Everyone, including Kit, twisted around to stare at Sterling, gaping in astonishment. At lunch, Ruthie said, "I have some good news, Kit. There's some wood left over from our new garage. My father said that you and I can use it for our treehouse." "That's great," said Kit. She knew her family had absolutely no money to spend on something as unnecessary as wood for a treehouse, so it was lucky that Ruthie's father, who still had a job, was giving away the leftover wood. "I was thinking," said Ruthie, "your treehouse sketches have never turned out very well. Why don't we ask Sterling to draw a plan for us?" "No," said Kit. "Gosh, Ruthie, if we let him plan a treehouse for us, then when it's built, he'll want to come in it, and we'll have to let him. He's already invaded my real house. I don't want him in our treehouse, too." Okay, said Ruthie. "Don't get all worked up. The treehouse doesn't even exist yet." "I'll ask Dad to help us," said Kit. "He loves building things. How soon can we get that wood?" A few days later, Kit's class was on the stage in the school auditorium working on the backdrop for the Thanksgiving pageant. Sterling had drawn the outline on big sheets of paper that were pinned to the curtains at the back of the stage. The boys in the class were painting in the fruits and vegetables and the cornucopia. The girls were cutting out paper turkey feathers. Sterling was standing on a stool, gluing the finished feathers onto the outlines of the giant turkeys. Mr. Fisher was far away, up in the balcony wrestling with the spotlights, and Roger was taking advantage of his absence by being a general pain. He came over and jabbed Sterling with his paintbrush. "So, Sterling," he said, "when's the wedding for you and Kit?" It was as if Sterling hadn't heard Roger. He stepped down off his stool and calmly began brushing glue onto another batch of turkey feathers. Roger turned his back on Sterling. "Hey, Kit," he said, "what's the matter with your boyfriend? He's awfully quiet." "Sterling is not my boyfriend," snapped Kit. "He and his mother pay to live in our house. They're boarders." "Oh, yeah," Roger drawled. "That's right." He plopped himself down on the stool that Sterling had been using, loudly and slowly, so that everyone could hear him. Roger said, "I heard that your family is so hard up that you're running a boarding house now." He smirked. "And you're the maid." I am not, Kit denied hotly. Of course, she had been feeling like a maid lately, but she'd never give Roger satisfaction by admitting it. That's not what I heard, Roger taunted. Here's you. He pretended that his paintbrush was a maid's feather duster, and he used it to brush some imaginary dust off his arms. Then he stood up, turned, and started to swagger away. It was then that Kit saw the giant turkey feathers stuck to the seat of Roger's pants. Kit touched Ruthie's arms and pointed at Roger. Ruthie chortled when she saw the feathers. Hey, look, everybody, she called out gleefully, pointing to Roger's bottom. Look at Roger, Mr. Turkey Pants. Everyone looked. The girls screamed with laughter, and the boys whistled and clapped. Hey, Turkey Pants, Ruthie hooted. Gobble, gobble. Kit realized with surprise that Sterling must have sneaked the gluey feathers onto the stool just as Roger sat down, so they'd stick to his pants when he stood up. Roger also realized that Sterling was the one who'd tricked him. You think you're pretty smart, don't you, Sterling? He said furiously as he pulled off the gluey feathers. Sticking your stupid turkey feathers on me. Well, at least my father hasn't flown the coop and disappeared like yours has. By now, the whole class was gathered around Kit, Ruthie, Sterling, and Roger. They all looked at Sterling, waiting to hear what he'd say to Roger. But Sterling didn't say anything, and his silence exasperated Kit. For your information, bird brain, she said to Roger, Sterling's father sent him a letter from Chicago just a few days ago. She paused for impact, and it had $20 in it. His mother gave $10 to my mother. Everyone gasped. $20? They whispered in amazement. Well, sneered Roger, that's good news for your family then, Kit, since your father doesn't have a job or any money. My father says your dad used up all his savings to pay the people who worked at his car dealership, which was stupid. No wonder no one will offer him a job. That's not true, said Kit, outraged. My father has job interviews all the time. Almost every day he has big, fancy lunches and meetings about jobs. He'll get one any day now. He said so. No, he won't, said Roger. Nobody wants your father. With that, Roger shoved his armful of sticky turkey feathers at Kit, who shoved them right back. Kit was so angry and shoved so hard that Roger staggered backward, lost his balance, and fell against a ladder that had a bucket of white paint on it. Everyone shrieked in horror and delight when the can fell over, splattering white paint on the backdrop and clonking Roger on the head. White paint spilled all over Roger's hair and face and shoulders and back and arms. It ran in rivers down Roger, striping his legs and his socks and pooling into white puddles around his shoes. Arg! Roger roared. He swiped his hand across his face to clear the paint out of his eyes and lunged for Kit. But at that very instant, Mr. Fisher appeared and shouted, Stop! Roger stopped. Everyone was quiet. Mr. Fisher frowned as he surveyed the white mess. Who's responsible for this? He demanded. Not me, said Roger. Sterling started it. He stuck feathers on me. And then Ruthie called me Mr. A stupid name. And Kit shoved me into the ladder. They did it, not me. Mr. Fisher held up his hand. Quiet, he said. Roger, go to the boys' room and clean yourself up. Boys and girls, I want you to go back to the classroom and sit silently at your desks. Kit, Ruthie, and Sterling, you three stay here. I want to talk to you. Roger scuttled past Kit on his way out. Now you're going to get it, he hissed at her, sounding pleased. Now you'll be sorry. Kit lifted her chin. I'm not sorry I shoved you, Roger, she said. I'd do it again, no matter what the punishment is. I'd shove anyone who says anything mean about my dad. So watch out, added Ruthie for good measure. Roger made a face, but for once, he made no smart remark in reply. When Kit, Ruthie, and Sterling were walking home from school later, the girls agreed that Mr. Fisher's punishment was not too terrible, really. They'd had to clean up the stage, and they were going to spend their recess time for the rest of the week helping Sterling redo the backdrop where white paint had splattered on it. Mr. Fisher had also decided that Kit, Ruthie, and Sterling would deliver the class's Thanksgiving basket to a soup kitchen while the rest of the class was watching the Thanksgiving pageant. The only bad part of the punishment is missing the pageant, said Ruthie, especially because we have to go to a soup kitchen instead. The worst part to me is that loudmouth Roger isn't being punished, said Kit. It's not fair. He's the one who started the whole fight. Don't worry, said Ruthie. In fairy tales, bad guys like Roger always get their comeuppance in the end. Everyone finds out the truth eventually. That reminded Kit of something. Sterling, she said, it would probably be better if we didn't say anything about this whole situation when we get home. Mother might get a little upset if she found out. Mine too, said Sterling. His voice was serious, but Kit saw a little ghost of a smile flicker across his face. She understood. They both knew that Sterling's mother would go into absolute fits if she found out her little lamb had been involved in a fight, and she'd surely come swooping down the school and insist that he couldn't possibly go to a soup kitchen. Think of the germs! You know, Sterling, said Ruthie, I think you're being pretty nice about this whole thing. After all, it was your drawing that was ruined by all that paint. Another smile flickered across Sterling's face. Too bad the first Thanksgiving didn't take place during a blizzard, he said in a low voice. Then Roger could have been the abominable snowman in the pageant. Ruthie laughed, and Kit did too. All right, everyone, we're halfway through. That was Chapter 6 of Read All About It. Stay tuned for Chapter 7 and head to kidsreadtokids.com for our lesson plan and all of our resources. Happy reading!